This is the Logitech StreamCam, and it's aimed at, you guessed it, streamers. That doesn't mean that it can't be used for other programs like Zoom or Teams, for example, as it functions the same as any other webcam. It connects through USB-C, and it has a non-removable cable measuring in at approximately 5 feet. It comes with two different attachments which clip onto the small pieces of plastic which stick out of the head. The one attachment allows it to be installed onto a tripod, and the other one allows it to connect the conventional way of resting it against your laptop or monitor. It is made of plastic with fabric material around the lens. It is capable of 1080p and 60 frames per second. It has an inbuilt microphone and a 78-degree field of view. The f2.0 lens, which has autofocus, should allow a good amount of light in. It also has auto exposure and advanced facial tracking. If you want to film yourself in portrait mode, then you can by clipping the StreamCam in the mount with the Logi logo at the bottom. When you have the logo on the side, that means that you're in landscape mode. It can be used straight out of the box without the need to install any software, but you can install Logitech Capture from the Logitech website, and this gives you extra options which we will show you shortly. Selecting the camera in OBS, and we notice we actually get the option for 2304 by 1296 resolution, but we only get 5 frames per second with this mode, so I can't imagine anyone will use this. We then selected 1080p and 60 frames per second, and we left the video format on any and tested in a completely dark room, and we couldn't see anything. So we went back to the video format options and went through each one, and the YU/Y2 option brought the most light to the image. The movement looks really good, although it doesn't look as though we're getting the full 60 frames per second, but I suppose that is to be expected when there is no light available. Bringing in natural light from outside, and whilst it is a huge improvement from a completely dark room, the image to me doesn't quite look focused. We do get some noticeable blurring in the background, which is quite nice as it separates us from the background and makes us stand out more. Using the YU/Y2 setting brings more light, making the image brighter, and I think it makes us look slightly crisper. The movement looks good using both settings, and the colour representation looks realistic. When we use a ring light, we look more in focus than when we only had light coming in through the window, and the movement still looks good, which is to be expected. All three video formats look very similar with subtle differences, with the biggest difference being the more light being shown on the YU/Y2 setting, so it's worth having a play around and seeing which one suits the look that you're going for. There is a link in the description which explains which each of these modes do. Focusing on a small object, and we are in focus until around 8 inches away, and the autofocus doesn't adjust the closer we get, so hopefully there is an option in the Logitech Capture software where we can adjust this. Focusing on text did do a good job with it looking pretty clear. The autofocus did attempt to adjust itself throughout this test to keep the text in focus, so it will be usable as a visualizer to display text to people in remote calls. Attempting to remove the green screen in OBS, and it did a great job without the need of moving any sliders, so for the green screen users out there, this should do a good job as long as you've got some decent lighting on your green screen. We then installed the Logitech Capture software to see what options we get. The one thing we noticed during the install is that this can be used as a virtual cam, meaning that any settings that you use in the Capture software can be pulled over into streaming software like OBS. There's some really useful options in here as well, and we'll quickly run through what we think will be useful for you. You can switch the priority from frame rate to exposure, meaning that you may lose some of your frames, but it will adjust the exposure so you're not washed out. Not that we noticed anything happen when we switched it. Backlight correction seems to brighten everything on the image. We have two options of either dual mono or stereo for the microphone, and this is what both sound like. We are currently using the dual mono microphone. We are now using the stereo microphone. Image stabilization enlarges the image, which should eliminate the majority of wobbles if you knock your laptop and it causes the webcam to move. Auto framing will keep you in frame if you move around whilst on a call. Once again, this zooms in slightly to give it that extra space to allow it to move to keep you within the frame. Remember when we said that we couldn't get close to the lens because it made objects blurred? If you manually adjust this in the software, you can get extremely close and keep the focus. If you are not happy with the white white balance, then you can adjust this manually as well to control the overall look. You get options to fine tune the overall image by changing brightness and contrast, etc. Once again, this gives you complete control. You can remove the green screen directly in the software, and you can flip the camera horizontally or vertically. Extra effects are available where you can have a text overlay where you can type anything you want in there and have it displayed on your calls, or you can even put a border around yourself and you can change the thickness and the colours. And resolution and frame rate can be changed if required. There was an issue that we noticed though, and that was when we used it as a virtual cam in OBS, we experienced a ton of lag where it took a good second or two for it to catch up with our movement. Putting it next to the Logitech C922 and the Razer Kiyo, and this is using it straight out the box with no changes to the settings. We're sitting next to the window with natural light coming in, and it does a really good job. I do think that the Razer Kiyo produces a slightly crisper image, but the StreamCam handles the exposure better. The C922 seems to struggle a little with the colours, with it looking washed out. When we close the curtains, the StreamCam does a really good job, but we notice that the Razer Kiyo really overexposes the image. But when we move our hands close to the lens, then the exposure looks good on the Kiyo, but it overexposes again as soon as we move our hand away. The exposure changes on all the other cameras as well when we move our hands around. Overall, the StreamCam is going to do a very good job, and it will be a great upgrade from a cheap or inbuilt webcam. Thank you as always for watching this review, and channel members, the early access video is on its way to you shortly.